Hey guys, it's Dean from the Workshop Whisperer here, just shooting this short live for you today. You might recognise the backdrop. This is my first time. I'm actually in the boss's office. If I want to be totally honest, this is the first time that I've actually been able to get outside of South Australia and come and spend some time with Rach here in Newcastle. So yeah, we've got I'll go that way. We've got the very warrior-looking Indian princess behind me. But let's talk team management, and more importantly, let's talk feedback forums. Now, one of the things we talk a lot about here, in your profitable auto repair shop, and one of the things that we're constantly, working with our clients in the interim is about, managing their team's performance, managing, the personalities inside the workshop, and also, really working on building the kind of culture that people want to buy into, they want to be a part of, and ultimately, they never want to leave. But of course, you've been doing this long enough to know that it's not always happy families. It's not always rainbows and rose petals amongst your team, and there are times where you will notice a drop in performance from your team members, and this is an important time in any leader's development, but also it's an important time in the evolution of team culture. Why? Because when you notice that drop in a person's performance, it's because something is different. Something has changed. And when you allow your ego to take over and decide that you know what the problem is and go really hard on that person, it might be in the, we used to do it differently in my day, or, that's not how it needs to be done, or, you just need to, pull your weight harder. It can actually have a real negative effect on the situation, a negative impact on the person. And there's a better way to handle it, and that's what we're going to run through in this short live video. What do we call them? We call them feedback forums, and there is a copy to the PDFs that we use, an opportunity for you to go through that. But the reason for feedback forums, as opposed to performance review, is really, well, it's really quite simple, right? Number one, if I just sort of add this just quickly to give some context. All right, let's say that this is you, and this is your team member. Okay, when we do a performance review, well, the goal of that conversation is pretty obvious. It's there in the it's there in the title. It's about doing a review, and really it's about you looking at them and everything that they've done before that point in time that you're having the conversation, right? So it's actually focused on the past. And one of the challenges there is that, of course, you can't fix the past. You can't change what has happened in the past. The only thing that you can now influence, affect, and impact is what's going to happen moving forward. And the other challenge, of performance development or performance reviews is that usually it's only one person speaking, and that's you. And normally it would be you telling your team member all the things that they've done wrong. That's next to useless, right? There's no two-way conversation. There is no future focus on what has to change, what has to improve, what has to be updated in the way that they operate inside your workshop. So performance development, performance reviews are they're kind of they're old school. They're so 80s. We want to update that, and that's why we're massive advocates of implementing feedback forums into your workplace. Let me share the difference with you, right? Pretty simple. Let's say there's you, there's your team member. All right. Well, number one, a feedback forum is super important because, to start with, it's a two-way conversation. You are inviting feedback. You are inviting perspective. You are inviting experience from your team member into what's happening in their performance right now. Okay, so essentially we're establishing sort of a baseline, and we are meeting in the middle to say, okay, this is where we feel things are at. All right, really, really important. The other is that we're actually now starting to focus on the future. So we're moving from what has happened to what will happen. That's really, really important in the context of validating where your team members are and acknowledging that there's some gaps that need to be addressed. Again, another critical part of feedback forums. Now, the next part in this, right, is, well, if the goal of a feedback forum is to generate a two-way discussion of where your team members are at, challenges perhaps that they're experiencing, it may be inside the workshop, it may be outside, it might be in their private life, okay? But the goal is to establish a two-way dialogue, two-way discussion, and to begin to shift our focus from what has happened in the past to what will happen in the future. Then there's one important distinction that we need to make in that. And the important distinction is this: that the problem is not the person. All right? So the problem, if I just come here, the problem is not the team member. The problem is also not you. Well, if the problem's not you and it's not the team member, well, what's the problem? The problem is actually their performance. It's not who they are, it's what they're doing. All right? And by establishing performance as the problem, so we make this the problem, we actually start addressing something that is separate to who your team member is. All right? I'll say that again. By establishing that the problem is not you and it's not the team member, that it is something, in their performance, then we separate the person, you and them, from the problem. And that's the difference in going from from standing, really looking at a problem, toe to toe, to looking at this problem, shoulder to shoulder, side by side. Now, if we want to connect that, what are some of the elements we need to be really, really mindful of when we're engaging in a feedback forum? Well, we need to be mindful of, number one, our emotions. They're super important. Emotions are super, super important, right? We want to be cool, we want to be calm, and we want to control our emotions. You might be frustrated, you might be angry, you might be super annoyed with the level of quality performance. It's important not to bring those emotions into this conversation. We also need to be aware of our physiology, the way in which we sit or stand or present ourselves to this person. Remember, more than 50%, rather, I think it's more than 70% of our communication is actually non-verbal. It's not what we say, it's how we say it. Or we say it's how we stand, how we posture ourselves when we say it. And I'm sure you can think back to times in your childhood where your mum or your dad walked into your room, didn't say anything, but you already knew by the way they were standing or the energy that they brought into your room, that perhaps you weren't necessarily in the good books. I certainly know that was my experience at times younger. And the other part we need to be really, really mindful of is the language. Okay? So instead of saying, you did or didn't do whatever it is, we want to add it to the problem that I see is. So what are we talking about? Instead of talking about you, we're talking about the problem. Well, we've established the importance of making the problem something outside of the person themselves. So language is super, super important. All right. But when we're filling out the feedback forum, and you'll notice when you look at the PDF that we've got for you, you'll notice that it's got team members rating first. Now, it's really important that when you are going to engage your team members in a feedback forum, that you hand them the feedback forum form that's a tongue twister, the feedback forum form first and have them rate themselves first. Okay, that's really important. You rate second. Why? Because we want the employee to give you their most honest answer, their most honest score, their most honest interpretation of where their performance is currently at, without being influenced by your bias, your perspective, or your feeling on where they're at. All right? If you fill out the feedback forum form first and then give it to your employee, they're going to try and match because they want to actually close any gaps that they feel might get them into trouble. What we said at the start, the feedback forum is actually about exposing gaps. Right? Exposing the difference between where your team member thinks they're at and where you believe they're at. It's only a belief, but it's an important belief, and it's one that we want the feedback forum to highlight. Why? Because then it's real simple, right? We can actually go soft. We go soft on the person, all right? Go soft here on the person. But we go really, really hard on the problem. And what I mean by that is, if you've got your team member rating on the form here, and we've got, let's say it's your rating on the form here, all right, let's just say, they give themselves a 5 for one thing, a 3 for the other, a 2 and a 6 for this, and you happen to give them a 4, a 3, a 5 or a 1, what are we going to address? Well, bang on, we want to address the gaps. All right, so we really want to go hard on the gaps in the performance rating. All right, and we separate that from the person themselves. Now, of course, the last question is, if you're going to use this form and you're going to engage in the feedback forums, how long, how often should you do them? Best practice is every quarter. Right, every quarter. And why do I want to do every quarter? Well, because really a feedback forum is a chance to establish alignment and agreement. And what does that mean? Okay, so if this is point A and we want to get to point B, right, in let's say 3 months, and the feedback forum has established what needs to be changed, what needs to be improved, right? Well, it's almost unrealistic to expect that any one of your team members will maintain a consistent level of performance and output. That means they'll go from where you are to what you've decided you want on a straight, consistent line. It's more likely that it's going to look something like this. They'll start well, but they'll get off track. They might improve a little bit, they might come down here, they might even get way down here, sort of work themselves out, maybe get good here, and maybe end up here. And the distance between there and there is the problem, right? And of course, if we were to wait 12 months to do a feedback forum, well, the difference, the gap, right, between the performance you want and the performance you got may be so far away from from your expectation that actually you're going to be super frustrated, or you won't have the opportunity to coach, counsel, or correct your team members' performance to a way that means they are making a positive contribution to your workshop day in, day out. So we recommend conducting quarterly, so every 3 months, conducting feedback forums with each of your team members, so that you can maintain a consistent level of visibility and quality and clarity, really, in you and your team members being aligned on what expectations you have of them in the workplace, what standards you expect from them, as a technician in your workshop, and what behaviours are conducive to delivering the results that you want, for your team, for your customers. So, what do we do when we notice a drop? In summary, what do we do when we notice a drop in a team member's performance? We engage them in a feedback forum. Why do we do feedback forums instead of performance reviews? because performance reviews are they focus on what's happened in the past, and it's a one-way conversation. Feedback forums are focused on what will happen in the future, and they're a two-way discussion. All right, what's the thing we need to be mindful of? We need to be mindful of our emotions, what we bring to the conversation, our physiology, how we present ourselves in that conversation, and more importantly, our language, right, so that we can go soft on the person because they're doing the best they can with what they have, but we want to go hard on the problem, all right? And we do that by having the team member fill out the forums first to expose the gaps. That's what we address. And finally, how often should we do the feedback forums? Every 3 months, to create that alignment, that agreement, and the accountability for working, behaving, performing in a way that's conducive to deliver the results that you want. As I said, download the PDF that we've got there for you, and let us know in the comments box below what's been most helpful for you from this short training on why you should be conducting feedback forums. And as always, keep those repair orders nice and high.